Today on CityCast Houston, it's going to be hard to fill the shoes of Congresswoman Shelia Jackson Lee, but the list of local politicians who want to try is growing fast. Plus, you won't believe what sparked a massive FBI raid in Houston. And after months of silence, former Houston Police Chief Troy Finner has spoken. We're about to find out just what he had to say as I sit down with Pulitzer Prize finalist Evan Mintz to recap the week. It's Friday, July 26th. I'm Carlignon Jones, in for Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Hey, Evan. How are you this morning?
I'm doing all right. A little wet, but, better this than 100 days without rain.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of rain lately. It's been such a crazy summer that it makes me want to ask, what do you feel like the theme or like a sentence to describe the last few weeks of summer could be? Because, we've had all types of things like Barrel go on. We've had presidents drop out of the race. We've had huge figures in Houston sadly pass away. It's just been a kind of hectic summer. So how would you describe it?
Well, there's this saying that there are decades when nothing's happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen. And this feels a little bit like that. We've had a couple weeks when decades are happening.
Oh, yeah, that definitely is a great way to put it all together because it feels like so much has happened in just such a short time. So let's go ahead and jump into the news. What was your big story this week?
My big story this week is the growing list of candidates to replace Congresswoman Shelia Jackson Lee. Now, you would think that Amanda Edwards, the former city councilwoman who previously ran for the seat, would be the shoo-in. But this isn't a normal election. It is like a weird appointment by precinct chairs in the district to replace Lee on the ballot because we already had the primary. We already had that election. So Sylvester Turner is stepping up. State Representative Jarvis Johnson, who just lost a race for the state Senate, is there. We've heard interest from State Representative Carlignon Jones and Bishop James Dixon and former Houston City Council member Dwight Boykins and current Councilwoman Letitia Plummer. And just the list keeps growing. And what's even weirder about this is that, one, you don't actually need to live in the district to get elected to this. You can just live anywhere in Texas. And two, there's only 88 precinct chairs are going to be voting for this thing. So all you got to do is get 45 people to give you a vote. And then you're on the ballot. It's a gerrymandered seat. You got a D next to your name, so you're going to win. And you're in Congress. And that's it. So it is incredible how this path to power is so short, so tight right here. The Harris County Democratic Party is likely meeting on August 15th to hold their vote. And Greg Abbott can also hold a special session to fill the gap between now and inauguration, but he doesn't need to. He may just deny Democrats one extra vote in the House, deny Houston full representation. But I am just curious to see who is it who rises to the top in this bizarre political moment.
Yeah, there's a lot of names in the hat. Mm-hmm. I know that there's crunch time going on here. They have to try to figure this out. The rules are set. But does this kind of take away from the democratic process of having the constituents be able to voice their opinion on who they want on the ballot to represent them? It's kind of taking that away.
You're right on that, but you need some sort of system to fill in the gaps if somebody dies between, the primary election when voters do get to have their say and the general election. But also, let's not pretend there's huge turnout for these partisan primaries. They have really low turnout, too. And voters did get to vote for their precinct chairs. And those are the people who are going to be up there, voting on the fill-in candidate. And then, this person's going to be in the seat for 2 years, and then you're going to have another election. And if they don't do a good job, you can always try to boot them out then.
So out of all the names that are in the hat, who do you think might actually rise to the top here?
I'd say Amanda Edwards. She's been campaigning in this district specifically. But also, Sylvester Turner was mayor. But I just got to say, he's 69, 70 years old. In Congress, seniority matters. And if you come in as a freshman at 70, you don't really have a lot of opportunity to rise in the ranks. I think it's good to have folks maybe step aside and let that next generation carry the torch, kind of like we're seeing at the federal level with Biden and Kamala.
Yeah, I agree. My biggest story this week is a little bit crazy, okay? Police in Houston conducted this massive bust this past Wednesday that was so large that they had to use a facility in NRG as a processing area for the people that they detained, okay? Like, huge arrest. 3 FBI tactical teams partnered with Houston police officers, Harris County Sheriff's deputies, U.S. Marshals Service deputies, and the Texas Department of Public Safety troopers to conduct arrests of 37 people. This was after a 2-year-long investigation into a bail bond fraud that allegedly allowed violent criminals who normally wouldn't qualify for these bonds to get out on the street just with ease, okay? The scheme sparked a federal indictment of 53 individuals total, 50 of which are now in custody and 3 are still wanted. Those charged are being described by law enforcement as employees of the bail bond company, Able Bonds, which falsified financial records, and also individuals who obtained those fraudulent bonds were detained as well. Some of these cases were also very high profile. One of them was a man named Gerald Williams, who was indicted because he was found guilty of killing a 17-year-old David Castro during a road rage incident after the Astros game. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard about this case that happened a couple years ago. David's dad has been really fighting for justice ever since this happened. So I'm glad that they went ahead and got these people off the streets because this is insane.
No, I'm shocked but not surprised. Our cash bail status quo system really does prioritize private profit ahead of public safety. And if you remember, back in 2021, there was a similar scandal where bail bondsmen were caught taking less than the usual, like 10% down payment so that people could just pay whatever, getting freedom on layaway. And judges were setting really high bonds trying to detain people. And the bail bond system was helping them get out. These for-profit bail bondsmen were helping folks get out of jail who really were presenting a potential of risk to society. And I think that there's this other bizarre level to all this, that the bail bond industry has like friendly relations with law enforcement, friendly relations with the tough on crime crowd. And we just need folks to sit down and see, like, they're not your friends in this. Like, they're not helpful in trying to promote public safety. And we need to go up to Austin and demand a better system, one that prioritizes like risk and safety rather than cash.
It makes me wonder how many other bail bonds could possibly be doing something like this, just because I have, like you said, seen so many people kind of get off free, or I see that theme on the news where there's so many people, families that are like, this man should have never been out of jail in the first place, and he may have killed their family member, robbed something, or, I've just seen that narrative happen so often in the past couple years. So it's just making me wonder, like, who else could be possibly putting these criminals back on the street so easily.
And it's frustrating to watch some of that coverage, too, because we see a lot of conflation between this cash bail system in the felony courts and then the reforms that we've had in the misdemeanor courts that basically said you can't detain people just because they're poor. And these are the lowest risk cases. And folks have gotten these issues confused. And it's complicated how our preventative detention system works. And it's not as straightforward, I think, as people want it to be.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast. The best way to learn a language is immersion, living where the language is spoken and using it every day. That's how I learned French as a kid. But if that's not in the cards for you this year, you can still learn a language the second best way, and that's with Babbel. I live in a city with a huge immigrant population. You probably do too. And in my hometown, a lot of my new neighbors speak Spanish as a first language, and we have lots of great Mexican and Central American and South American restaurants and stores. I wanted to be able to communicate just a little bit better with some of my neighbors. So I started with Babbel, the science-backed language learning app that actually works. And after just a few extremely enjoyable weeks learning Spanish with Babbel, I've already gotten comfortable ordering at a restaurant and eavesdropping on my girlfriend's conversations with her mom. Look, learning a language isn't always easy, but with Babbel it is fun and it feels useful, basically immediately. That's why Babbel has over 16 million subscriptions sold. Plus, all of Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. Here's a special limited-time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, Get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Houston's original neighborhood downtown is for everyone, and it's poppin'. It's our open-hearted home for our biggest celebrations and our treasured hidden gems. From the world-class theater district to incredible green spaces like Discovery Green, downtown is the place to be. In fact, more people visited downtown Houston last year than the entire population of Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, and San Antonio combined. There's no better time to live downtown than now. From starter apartments to luxury lofts, everyone can take advantage of the arts, business, culture, entertainment, food, and recreation. Now, you might think of downtown as only the heartbeat of Houston's regional economy, which it is, but there's so much more to it, including free events throughout the week with Downtown Houston Plus. From the summer trivia nights at Trebley Park to 713 Day at Market Square Park on July 13th, you can find something to do and eat and watch in downtown Houston. Learn more at downtownhouston.org. Downtown Houston, get energized and revived.
If that wasn't enough police drama, I wanted to go ahead and quickly go through this, that after months of silence, former police chief Troy Finner has spoken up and gone on the record to allege that he was pushed out of HPD to bury a scandal. Now, during an interview with the Houston Chronicle, Finner said that he's concerned that the city and police department are trying to bury the full details of that 200,000 suspended caseload that was exposed earlier this year. Finner said that he wanted to tell the truth and expose that for nearly 10 years, HPD had allegedly been shelving these investigations with that code that basically put on there that it was suspended. It noted in the article that when he was still chief, he pledged to confront the issues head on by launching an internal investigation in February, and he was releasing biweekly updates about the progress to the public. Now, Finner pointed out that since he has left the department, there hasn't been much updates on these case files. And I mean, I can tell that he's telling the truth here because I haven't heard much about it since he decided to resign. So he is just basically saying that he's concerned that they're not going to live up to those promises to get the public the answers that they need. And it's interesting that he kind of like finally spoke up after all this time.
Yeah, I mean, what has happened to the report that we were promised? What happened to the expose that the city was supposed to do to explain what was happening here? It feels like the issue has fallen silent, and that's really frustrating. On the other hand, like I feel for Chief Finner, but when you're at the top, you've got to realize that the buck stops with you. And if something wrong happened on your watch, you're going to take the blame for it, even if you really weren't the one at fault.
Exactly. So that's what seems to have happened here, or that's what he alleged happened. So as it comes out, we'll learn more about what he really has to say about what happened here. Let's move on to our overlooked story. What was your most overlooked story for the week, Evan?
Oh, my most overlooked story was some hilarious drama down at City Council public session.
Oh, Lord.
A loud opponent of the 11th Street Road Safety Project showed up and was basically asking the city to tear up the street, to undo the whole project. And she had to be escorted out of city council chambers by police after she went on a bizarre tirade about this, falsely claiming that council member Abby Kamen said something rude about new members of the Montrose TERS, the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, because Montrose right now is going through a similar debate about rebuilding Montrose. And I've just got to say, like, let things be. The street is great. Businesses, from the data I've seen, are doing more business now. Safety has significantly improved, and we should be following this data and letting the data lead the way, rather than just letting the loudest person in the room have the final word. And I know sometimes people are frustrated when you don't get your win, when you realize you're not in the majority, and that's what it means to live in a big, diverse, free society. You don't get everything you want.
Yeah, what they need to do is just go ahead and show her the facts that it's working. It's actually a better system going on right now. And maybe that'll go ahead and quiet her down, because Yelling in the room about a street is a little insane.
Yeah. Like, I get it if, like, you're yelling in the room because the road was unsafe and, like, someone died and, like, or hurt and, like, you're very upset about this. But what she's upset about is that it is now harder to make, like, left-hand turns into certain businesses. But you drive up and down the street. It's like, okay, you just like go to the next intersection and you take a left and like there you are. Like, it's okay. It's fine. You'll do all right.
Yeah, literally. If somebody is safer and we're protecting our citizens, that's what really matters. Like a left-hand turn is not the biggest thing that we're trying to do in this city here. So I just need her to calm down and see that it's actually working for us.
Yeah.
My most overlooked story is that COVID is on the rise again, y'all. And it's being fueled by a new variant called the flirt variant, which has accounted for about half of the current infections going on, according to the CDC data. Now, if you're thinking like, how is this spreading during the heat? Because I remember that when COVID came out, they were like, it spreads easier in cooler areas and things like that. Well, it's opposite now, I guess. Now they're saying that it's due to people gathering in areas to avoid the heat. So basically, everybody's just coming inside together to try to get out of the heat. And also the July 4th traveling that occurred is also helping fuel this. Now, according to CDC data, the number of cases have increased in 39 states and don't seem to be declining in any of the states. But the good news about this is that hospitalizations and deaths remain low as of now, but it's definitely something to keep an eye out for. Watch, make sure you're washing your hands properly, staying safe and at a good distance from people so that you don't catch this because it's still unsafe and it's still dangerous, y'all.
Mm-hmm. People have been traveling so much this summer. We are breaking travel records, which has an upside. It shows like the economy is strong and people are having fun with their lives. On the downside, we're spreading viruses and that's not good. It spreads more, I think, when people are inside. So I'd imagine that like in the South, in Houston, where you're inside more during the summer, like you're going to get a whole lot more spread. And then when it's winter in like the North and people are inside, like that's when you get it spreading around there. But I would just say, mask up if you need to, get that booster if you need to. If you're feeling sick, stay at home.
Yes, exactly. It's summertime. I know we want to get out and move around and be around people, but just make sure you're watching your health. So please pay attention to that, guys. I wanted to leave a note also about the passing of Felix Fraga, who was a former HISD board member, Houston City Council member, and activist in the Second Ward. He died from complications of Alzheimer's, but was truly a Houston icon. So I definitely wanted to shout out him and give condolences to his family. He was a huge leader in the Latinx community in Houston. He was also a leader at a community center known as Baker Ripley, formerly known as Ripley House. So just a huge member of our community, and we want to give our condolences here at CityCast.
Fraga was just an incredible activist, an incredible Houstonian. And it's sad when we lose that generation. And sometimes you just want to look around at the people who are out there now and wonder who is going to pick up that torch, who's going to be the next person to lead and work to make Houston a better place to live for everyone.
Mm-hmm. It's just so sad. I feel like we've lost several legends in the past couple weeks. So I hate that that's happening. But their legacy will live forever. And that's what I love about our Houston community, is that we definitely make sure that it lives on. And now I want to go ahead and get to some joy, because that kind of made me a little sad. So, Evan, tell me what your moment of joy was this week.
Oh, my moment of joy was Kamala Harris showing up early to Houston to talk with our local leaders about barrel recovery. But what really made me smile was hearing that Sheriff Ed Gonzalez specifically asked her to help us build the Ike Dike. So thank you, Sheriff Ed. You are a hero. And, Texas rarely gets presidential candidates down here because we're not a swing state. And I just hope that in my lifetime, maybe we can see things change, not for partisan reasons, but so that presidential candidates have to start pandering to us in the same way that like they've pandered to Iowa or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania or wherever. Make them show up here and talk about how great Houston is and how they're going to give us money to build the Ike Dike and more money for the Johnson Space Center and more money for like hydrogen research and geothermal and like all the stuff that like would really make Houston thrive through the next century.
Yeah, because I feel like Houston is such a big part of what drives the entire state, honestly. So,
yeah.
I mean, I wish, yeah, exactly. Like we do so much here. So more presidential candidates definitely need to come our way. And that's also my moment of joy is that Vice President Kamala Harris visited Houston yesterday to speak to the American Federation of Teachers at their national conference. This is my moment of joy more so just because I'm seeing so many people kind of just unite over her decision to run for presidency. It's amazing to me like how I've seen people come together. I initially expected so much backlash about her putting her hat in the race just because like when Hillary Clinton ran, we've seen so many people are like, a woman cannot run the country. And, it was just a lot of that going on. I think that at this point, I've seen so much backlash, but also so many people defending her to the point that it kind of defeats the hate. There's been just so many showcases of uniting Americans who are raising money. I mean, the first day she raised $81 million in 24 hours. That's amazing. There's been meetings, which one of our guests earlier this week was a part of 40,000 Black women who raised over $1 million for Harris. And then on top of that, there was another meeting with 53,000 Black men that also raised over $1 million for Harris as well. So this has just been amazing to see people come together. I'm so happy to see Houstonians involved in this and also that she came to see our beautiful people.
Yeah.
And, this is one of her first stops in her presidential campaign trail. So, we're not the first stop, but we're one of the first stops. So that kind of means something to me.
Yeah, this is kind of a test run for 2028 when we're hosting the RNC and we're going to have all those candidates and all those politicians here in downtown Houston. So, what are the lessons learned from this little experience?
Yeah, exactly. I want to see what comes out of it. If, like you said, if more politicians come here, try to speak to us from each party, we want to see what everyone has to say. And we want to really be a part of what goes on in our nation, because I feel like Houston, like I said, has such a huge part in, making our nation great. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, Evan, thank you so much for joining me today. It was great hearing from you, and I hope to hear from you again soon. I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer because, the kids are going back to school pretty soon. So
oh, yeah.
Try to get it back in.
No matter whether they're in camp or whether they're in school, we're always having a good time.
I love that. Thank you, Evan.
All right, talk to y'all later.
That was Pulitzer Prize finalist Evan Mintz. You can find all the stories we discussed this week with the links in our show notes. And if you enjoyed this week's episode, make sure you share it with your friends and family so they can stay up to date and in tune with our city. And while you're at it, check out our daily newsletter, Hey Houston, for even more news and fun things to do around town. The link to subscribe is also in our show notes. That will do it for this week here at CityCast Houston. Our Hey Houston newsletter editors are Brooke Lewis and Natalia Aldana. Our executive producer is Laura Eisensee. Our host is Raheel Ramzanali, and our producers are Francisco Kilgore and me, Carlignon Jones. Our music is by the band All the Kimonos. We'll be back on Monday to do a deep dive on what CenterPoint's response to Beryl can mean for their future in Texas. You don't want to miss it.